Yo, what is up, YouTube? It is your boy HB Clips, aka Pretty Boy Ray, and we are here with a very different video than what I usually do. Usually I feel like I give y'all the music reactions, you feel me? But today just saw this on my page, and I was like, I either want to do one on this or one on JJK, because the JJK episodes did come out today, which it was just the quote unquote movie. 2 episodes, wasting my time rewatching, hoping that it was gonna be something new. But that just means that next week something is new. At least they didn't separate it into 2 different parts and do like half of the movie this week and half of the movie next week, because then I would have really been tight. But this video is called Why I Hate Joyboy. And as somebody that took like a whole year, or I don't even remember if it was a year or 2 years to catch up to One Piece, I need to hear what the boy about to say, you feel me? But let's see.
The contentious topic in the One Piece community, as with further fate is a contentious topic in the One Piece community, as with further developments on the emo and ancient history side of the story, and titles such as the Child of Destiny now being pushed into the forefront of the narrative. The one question many people are asking is if One Piece is going to go down the same road Naruto went down, with prophecy children and a predetermined end. In this video, I want to tackle exactly that idea. How does fate work in the One Piece world? How should we as readers view it, and what does Luffy's fate mean for all the people who came before him and quote-unquote made him who he is? This is a video I've wanted to make for a long time, because the argument of will and fate is something I went back and forth with you guys on a decent while ago, as it concerns Roger, Shanks, Zebek.
Alright, so I feel like I know what he's about to get into. I feel like he's about to make the argument that since we found out that, like, the people that eat the fruit are kind of similar to the people before them that ate the fruit. But the fruit doesn't make you who you are, in a sense. The fruits choose who eats them. So they purposely choose whoever they feel fits the fruit. So Luffy isn't Luffy because he ate the fruit. The fruit chose Luffy because he's Luffy.
And Joyboy. I'll just give a brief recap on what the inciting incident for this video was for context. Originally, I had made a post saying that Zebek would technically have more impact on the future trajectory of the story than Roger did, because of the way that Luffy has now been made into a Destiny child. My main reasoning for this point is that the Nika fruit chose Luffy out of everyone in 800 years. This includes Roger, who holds the exact same dreams and essentially has the exact same personality that Luffy does, which would mean that Luffy was destined to eat the fruit and then become Joyboy.
Alright, see, that's kind of a good argument. But I would just argue that Nika knew the differences between Roger and Luffy, because you're not going to say Roger and Luffy are the same character. Roger and Luffy do have a bunch of similarities, but that just comes with the territory of wanting to be the most free in the sea, the king of the pirates. If Luffy is striving to become like Roger, that doesn't mean that they're one and one. Luffy just recognizes the freedom of being king of the pirates and is walking in the path that Roger walked in, but that doesn't make him Roger.
From my perspective. This then led to the argument of Roger and Shanks being the ones who created who Luffy is today, because Roger passed his will down to Shanks, who then basically passed that will down to Luffy, which then led to my argument of will versus fate. The main discussion,
and that Shanks argument is low-key weak too, because when Luffy ate the gum fruit, Shanks was looking for Ace. He thought that Ace was the one that should eat the fruit, or that the fruit was gonna choose.
I'll be going over in this video will be, would Luffy be who he is today if he never met Shanks? Would the Nika fruit still find its way to him, and would Luffy still become Joyboy? I'm just gonna get the answer I have out of the way, which is yes. I think regardless of what happens, what is being set up is that Luffy was 1, always going to be a pirate, 2, was always going to be chosen by the Nika fruit, and 3, was always going to find a way to laugh tail and get the One Piece. Firstly, would Luffy even be a pirate?
Alright, I agree with those points.
Let's say that Luffy is not an actual,
like, Luffy was gonna do all of this, but that's because he's the main character, so duh. We notice.
Actual reincarnation of Joyboy. Personally, I don't believe it, but it is a possibility that Oda is setting up. But for the sake of understanding the argument better, I'm not going to use the idea that Luffy is literally the same Joyboy that was around 800 years ago. Originally, I made the claim that Luffy before meeting Shanks wanted to be a pirate. This was based off an anime-only scene in the Ace flashback when Garp was bringing Luffy to the Dawn, when Luffy says he doesn't want to be just a pirate, to which Garp replies, finally it got through to you, but then he says he doesn't want to just be a pirate, he wants to be king of the pirates, which implies that Luffy always wanted to be a pirate as Garp logically wasn't around on Fuchsia Village in the year that Shanks was there. But again, this was just anime only. The scene in the manga just has Luffy tell Garp he wants to be pirate king, to which Garp says, first you eat a devil fruit and now you spout this nonsense. I don't like using the anime as proof because the anime by and large is not canon and will contradict the manga. However, in this instance, while the manga does not directly imply Luffy wanted to be a pirate before meeting Shanks, it does imply that Luffy at the very least didn't want to be a Navy man, based off Garp speaking to Luffy as if he's been repeating the idea that he wanted him to be the greatest Navy man for a while. Garp was more than likely training.
That's a good interpretation. That's a good take. Like using the context
Directly imply Luffy wanted to be a pirate before meeting Shanks. It does imply that Luffy at the very least didn't want to be a Navy man, based off Garp speaking to Luffy as if he's been repeating the idea that he wanted him to be the greatest Navy man for a while. Garp was more than likely training Luffy by throwing him into the jungle before Shanks even met Luffy, based off how he's handling him right here, and the fact that Luffy when he meets Ace doesn't seem like he's new to the lifestyle in the wild, as he finds his way back to the Don's place after Ace throws him off the bridge into the ravine. The reason I'm going in detail on this point and bringing these things.
Alright, but am I wrong? Wait, I need to make sure something. Yeah, he stabbed himself after meeting Shanks. So if Luffy has the scar in this, unless he doesn't have the scar in the manga,
Things
Luffy has the scar here. Well, he has the fruit too.
By throwing him into the jungle before Shanks even met Luffy, based off how he's handling him right here, and the fact that
yeah,
Luffy,
look here, he got the scar.
Seem like he's
so he already met
in the
Shanks.
wild, as he finds his way back to the dock. And the
or
fact
did
that
he not
Luffy
say
throws him
Shanks?
into the jungle before Shanks even met Luffy.
Yeah, he
based
said
off how
Shanks.
He's handling him right here, and the fact that Luffy, when he meets Ace, doesn't seem like he's new to the lifestyle in the wild, as he finds his way back to the Don's place after Ace throws him off the bridge into the ravine. The reason I'm going in detail on this point and bringing these things up is because I want to show you all that even if Luffy never met Shanks, Luffy would still not have wanted to become a Marine. Luffy's personality was always that of somebody who wanted to be free. Shanks doesn't give Luffy a straw hat until the very last day he's on Fuchsia Village, which is the day that Luffy tells Shanks he wants to be Pirate King. And we know that Luffy had told Shanks his dream previous to this, which resulted in Shanks crying as Roger said the exact same thing. Whatever reason Roger had to become a pirate would then be similar to what Luffy had, and regardless, pirates have always existed for centuries before the Great Pirate Era even started, so Luffy wouldn't need to want to be Pirate King to end up being a pirate. Shanks and Roger are not the sole reason that Luffy would have become a pirate, because both Roger, who holds the same dream Luffy does, and Joyboy, who Luffy has now become exactly like, were both pirates without the Great Pirate Era as motivation, and Joyboy was
Luffy has not become like Joyboy, bro.
First pirate ever. It is incredibly disingenuous to act like Luffy would have become a Navy man if he didn't meet Shanks, because that's not what the story implies at all. Luffy has always been a free spirit. Shanks did not give him that part about himself. From what we see, the only character trait that Shanks has given Luffy is more restraint than Roger had, because the main difference we see highlighted between Luffy and Roger is in Jaya with Bellamy. If Roger was in that situation with Bellamy, Roger would have killed or beat up Bellamy for treating him.
But that's what I'm saying, like, even though it is hinted that in a way Luffy is destined to reach the places these people have reached, like, he goes about it a different way. And I guess this is where he was saying that maybe Shanks helped create who Luffy is, but influences don't create who you are, because you don't have to be influenced by people. Luffy just saw that and was like, at first obviously Luffy was like, why would y'all let like the bandits do that? That's not cool at all. But then he realized the importance of it. He was like, I understand this now. Like, not all fights are worth fighting.
But Luffy, after seeing Shanks' restraint with Higama, shows that same restraint. If Luffy had never met Shanks, the part of his personality that saw him try to confront Higama for talking bad about Shanks would have never gone away. That's the main character trait that Shanks imparted to Luffy. Anything else is a trait that Luffy would have always had whether or not he met Shanks. Another reason why it's clear that Luffy would have become a pirate regardless of Shanks and always had his free spirit is the fact that the Nika fruit chose him. I'm going to go as in-depth as I possibly can on this, because I know
this is another great take. I'm not even gonna lie.
Would have found its way to Luffy regardless of if Shanks was around or not,
because the Nika fruit would not have chosen to be with a Navy soldier.
This was the one who brought it to Fuchsia Village.
Because obviously the point of the Nika fruit is to combat Emu, or like take down the world government.
And this
Freedom,
is going
basically.
to be where the fate side of the argument comes in. The Gorosei state that in 800
So that's a great
years,
argument.
the world government has tried to find the gum gum fruit in every era and has never succeeded in those 800 years. The gum gum fruit is found in the East Blue the exact same time Luffy is alive and able to eat it. Regardless of if Shanks was the one who found the fruit or not, the fruit was already in the same blue Luffy was born in and would have been adventuring around in. The Gorosei state that it's almost as if the fruit is avoiding them, and state that the fruit very well might be because Zoan fruits have a will of their own. We've known this since Alabasta because of Mr. Four's dog weapon. In Road to Laughdale Volume 3, which is written by Oda in preparation for the final saga of the story to recap what is important, it is stated that the fruit seemed to be evading the world government on its own accord, meaning the fruit is freely able to choose who finds it. The fruit was found by who's who out of everyone in 800 years because either the fruit or the devil inside the fruit knew that that was the way that it would end up being eaten by the person who would become Joyboy. Joyboy and Poseidon were both prophesied to meet again. Luffy was always going to be the one who ate the Nika fruit regardless of if he did it now or in the future, because Shirahoshi was born in the same era that Luffy was. For us to believe that Luffy would have never found the Gum Gum fruit if Shanks didn't bring it to Fuchsia Village, we would have to believe that somebody else in the world was capable of becoming Joyboy.
Now, I'm not gonna lie though, do Luffy get damn Luffy will get this far without the Gum Gum fruit because he would just fight different, I'm assuming. But damn, that would be a good video topic right there. Like, does Luffy make it as far as he did if he didn't have the Gum Gum fruit? And how far would he make it? And at what point does he run into this Nika fruit?
Boy, which again, the story very clearly states, implies, and shows directly that Luffy is the only person in 800 years who would have been capable of awakening that fruit and becoming Joyboy. So the fruit would have found its way to him eventually, regardless. Now this gets into a whole prophecy thing that we aren't too sure about yet. Prophecies in One Piece have never been as big as they've been since Wano and partway through Fishman Island. Is it the case that the fruit knew Shanks would be left behind on God Valley and get found by Roger, inherit his will, and then learn about how important it is to then go into the East Blue the exact same time who's who finds it, to then have that fruit brought to Luffy, who Shanks would meet and befriend, and then have Luffy accidentally eat it? I don't know, but it's not that crazy of a possibility for that to be the case now that we know that Luffy was always prophesied to be Joyboy. If there were other candidates for characters who could have been Joyboy in the same era as Luffy, then for sure you could make the argument that Shanks and Roger are the reasons why Luffy is the one who became Joyboy out of all of those characters, but there are no other candidates. Luffy is shown time and time again to be one of one. No one else in his era is even remotely close to him as far as personality or trajectory goes. Luffy has been favored by fate since he started his journey and even before that point. It should not be so hard to understand that there is no timeline where Shirahoshi is born.
Luffy do got the D, so he was literally like before birth, he was destined to be great because he got the D. But mad people got the D though. Pause.
And becomes Poseidon, and Luffy simply just doesn't become Joyboy because as far as we know, Shirahoshi is the only Poseidon who has been born in those 800 years, which is why Imu also has her on his list of figures to watch out for. This is not to say that Shanks and Roger are completely useless as characters or that they serve no purpose. Of course they serve a purpose in the story and have done many things outside of Luffy to impact the world in a
Nah, facts. And Shanks, especially Shanks' big thing is always that he's betting on the future generation. Like, that's literally what Shanks' character has been since episode 1. Like, bet on the next generation.
But they are not what created Luffy if Luffy was always going to end up on this trajectory due to fate and prophecy. But Raftel, what about the One Piece? Luffy surely wouldn't have wanted to find the One Piece if he didn't meet Shanks. If Roger never started the Great Pirate Era, Luffy would have never even known the One Piece exists, even if he did become Joyboy. His entire journey would have been different and he wouldn't even have found his crew who have been an integral part to his ascension. Well, no, that's false actually. Let's start with Luffy's crew. Luffy decided...
I feel like I know what he's about to go into. If the One Piece is a treasure that you obtain and you obtain everything in life and you become the most free, Luffy, even if the One Piece doesn't exist, Luffy would be striving towards the One Piece, if that makes sense, even if he doesn't know what it is, because that's his personality, to be the most free, to be like, you feel me?
To set sail at the time he did because that's the time he and Ace decided. My argument is not based on if Roger never existed at all. It's based on if Roger didn't start the Great Pirate Era. But I know you guys like to find any pinhole you can, so let's say that Roger simply doesn't exist at all. Luffy would more than likely still start his journey at the exact same time he did in the original story, even if he never met Ace, because Roger wouldn't exist to have Ace. For the simple fact that there is no reason why Luffy wouldn't start his journey at the same age, seeing as Roger also started his journey at a young age, and we know that there are many pirates out there who start their journeys very young. No one Luffy meets in the East Blue came with Luffy because he wanted to be the Pirate King.
Bonnie,
they
like
sailed
10
with him
years
because
old.
of who Luffy is as a person. This is a trait inherent to Luffy. Mihawk states as much in Marineford that Luffy has the rare ability to draw people to him. Luffy's journey in the East Blue would be the exact same as it was even if he didn't want to be the Pirate King, because wanting the One Piece had no impact on which islands he decided.
Nah, facts. And Luffy would just ask everybody to join his crew anyway, because that's what Luffy do. Luffy was just asking anybody, hey, you want to join my crew? Anybody he thought was cool, he was like, you want to join my crew?
To sail to, or who he would have met on those islands. Same thing with the Grand Line. Luffy would have still met Robin and interested her with his D and personality, because him wanting to be Pirate King played no significant factor in her deciding to join the crew, as she joined because Luffy saved her life. Every other Straw Hat that joins after that, while important, play far less important of a role than Nami and Robin do as far as finding the One Piece goes. His crew does not change whether or not he decides to be Pirate King, because like I explained before, Luffy would have always wanted to be a pirate in the first place. He would have always drawn people to him and always had the ability to read their emotions, because Rayleigh says as much while training Luffy that he's naturally able to get a better read on the emotions and personalities of people.
Nah, I just thought about it. Back to what I was saying earlier. Luffy without the gum fruit in Skypiea against Enel, he would have had to eat it before Skypiea.
Luffy would have always found his crew with or without the Great Pirate Era, as none of them are born because the Great Pirate Era started. But what about the One Piece? Sure, he'd have his crew, but Ino and Neko wouldn't have been able to tell them where the road poneglyphs are on Zou, and the Yonko wouldn't be hoarding the poneglyphs either. Again, no, that's false. Luffy would have still possessed the voice of all things. He may not have gotten to Zou when he did because he might not have allied with Law, but he would still have a way to know what the poneglyphs are. Roger found his way to the One Piece without knowing what it was, and it would just be the exact same thing that would happen to Luffy. Luffy would have just found the One Piece the exact same way Roger did, because Nami would still hold the dream of mapping every island, so Luffy would still sail around the world and eventually get to Lodestar. Robin would also know enough about history to tell Luffy what
to map the whole world out.
He needs to know, so he would have an even faster time finding it than Roger did, and Luffy would still have a love of adventure and curiosity about things to want to find the One Piece once he did get to Lodestar. He'd still be getting stronger and stronger from his journeys and fighting opponents who are tyrants towards his friends. Big Mom would still have her poneglyph because she had it before the Great Pirate Era even started, as she was the one who Roger stole it from. Kaido's poneglyph was always on Wano, and we don't know where the last one is to say that it's only where it is because Roger was around. Regardless of Roger and Shanks, Luffy again would still find his way to the One Piece. I know it doesn't seem like it should be possible. After all, Roger is the first character we see in the story. His death is what we started the series off with, and his challenge to the world has echoed through this age. He started the Great Pirate Era. His title is a dream Luffy holds. His apprentice is the one who Luffy looks up to. Shanks has been steering this generation from behind the scenes and has been given the most glaze by Oda. But if you look deep,
I'm not gonna lie, arguably, you could argue that Luffy don't even see Roger. Bro never says, I want to be like Roger, King of the Pirates. Bro just says, I want to be King of the Pirates. Bro don't see Roger at all.
You really pay attention to the entire story of One Piece, you'll realize that Luffy now being a prophecy child still makes perfect sense based off the way that Oda has written him since the very first chapter of the story. Luffy was always going to be Luffy, and that's fine. It makes perfect sense actually, because how can a man be free if he's only the result of the influence of other people? Luffy is free because he's always been free. He's always been who he is and no one can change that. But is it a good thing that he was always going to end up being this way? I don't think so. Personally, I wish Roger and Shanks were the factors that created Joyboy.
It's like arguing with, it's like arguing Aaron. Was Aaron really free because he chose to be free, or was he free because he had to be free because of the Attack Titan?
Because then One Piece would truly separate itself from other stories like it, mainly Naruto. Prophecies and Prophecy Children take all the tension out of the story because Luffy was destined to win. Crocodile failing to kill Luffy the first time? Well, he has to be Joyboy and bring the dawn. And now having his ability perfectly countered by Luffy? Well, Luffy has to bring the dawn. Katakuri not killing Luffy outright the first time? Well, Luffy has to become Joyboy and bring the dawn. Luffy not dying on Marineford, Impel Down, or Sabaody? Well, Luffy has to bring the dawn. Kaido not killing Luffy at literally any point before, and Luffy literally resurrecting when he does actually kill him? Well, Luffy is Joyboy and he's going to bring the dawn. I don't know how Oda can write the Joyboy prophecy in any other way that doesn't invalidate Roger, because Roger is simply just no longer the most important pirate. That's Joyboy. The One Piece is not important because of what Roger left behind. It's important because of what Joyboy left behind. Emo went after Ruff because he saw him as the second coming of Davy Jones.
I see where he's coming from.
But the only reason the Holy Knights were sent after
it don't ruin
the
the story for me
though,
though, but I see where he's coming from for sure.
The Roger Pirates didn't even know the world government had a fighting force on that level until then, because Emu never took notice of Roger since he knew he wasn't going to be Joyboy and there was no chance of him being Joyboy. Roger isn't the one who created pirates. Joyboy is. Longevity in the story does not make a character more important. Alvida is not some important figure because she's the first opponent that Luffy faces on his journey. Roger being the greatest pirate for the entire story in the past doesn't mean that Oda can't create pirates greater than him in the future, and he already has with Joyboy and Jones. Roger has only become the greatest because Emu personally came and took out Zebek. If Zebek survives God Valley and continues on his journey, would Roger even be considered the king of the pirates? You guys may think this is simply just Blackbeard agenda and typical Raftel King Blackbeard glaze, but I haven't even brought up Blackbeard a single time in the video until just now. Now all of my opinions are hinged on Blackbeard.
Blackbeard,
you guys need to realize that people can hold opinions outside of their main one. It is not my love for Blackbeard that caused me to see that Roger and Shanks are slowly having their importance diminish. It's my interpretation of the road the story is going down. A road I did not want to see it go down the moment I saw Zunisha say Joyboy has returned. One Piece is one of the greatest stories, but it is still just a story, and most stories are influenced by the other ones around them. It's just unfortunate that such a big aspect of the series, and a big reason why I love Luffy.
My argument to this is Luffy doesn't acknowledge Joyboy anytime, I guess. Like when Emmett speaks to him or when Zunisha speaks, he's always like, who the hell is Joyboy?
So much being his luck and his character is now being attributed to destiny and fate. It may not
and
be
even, this another great argument right here. When he tells Emmett, I'm not Joyboy, who's Joyboy? Emmett asks for his name. And he says, I am Monkey D. Luffy and I'm gonna be king of the pirates, or whatever he says. I forgot what he says exactly. But even Emmett acknowledging that he's not Joyboy just dispels this whole video.
What we want to hear, but this is simply what the story is being set up as now. Blackbeard being the promised one for Jones and Luffy being the promised one for Joyboy. I hope Oda can give more clarity on this as far as a what if goes in an SBS or extra statement, because I really would like to know what the story would be like if Luffy never ended up meeting Shanks on Fuchsia Village. Inherited will has always been important, and I don't think it's going to be any less important going forward, but that inherited will is not something outside of fate, but just an explanation for the fate that Luffy has now been destined for. I would really like to see Luffy's reaction to hearing the Joyboy prophecy and what his response would be to hearing he was predestined for something. I think Luffy will hate the idea that he was going to win because of some prophecy, and will probably just say that if he's going to succeed, it's going to be because of his own merit. But unless Luffy ends up losing, his opinion of his own destiny and trying to break free from it won't really matter if he ends up winning in the end anyways. We as readers should understand that this is the road One Piece is most likely going to be going down, and instead of switching up on the series and raising our pitchforks, we should be able to accept that the story is going to be heading in this direction. But let me know what you guys think. Is Luffy the creation of inherited will or prophecy? What do you think would happen to Luffy in the story of One?
I don't know about that. I don't think Luffy is the product of prophecy. I think the fruit did choose him. Like, I feel like he was destined to eat the fruit, but I don't think anything after that or any fight or like Kaido or none of that. I don't think none of that was Joyboy. But let me know what y'all think down below in the comment section. Leave a like, subscribe. Let me know if y'all fuck with that anime content, and let me know if there's anything else y'all want me to react to. Peace.